The morning arrives not with a shout, but with a slow creeping of light across the grain of the wood. There is a specific kind of silence found in these small corners of a home where the world feels held at a distance. Here, the air is cool and carries the faint scent of damp earth and moss. The shadows are long and soft, stretching across the path as if they are reluctant to move. It is a moment of total suspension, where the only movement is the gradual shift of a sunbeam as it finds its way through the overhead canopy. This space does not ask for anything. It simply exists in its own quiet rhythm, anchored by the sturdy presence of the enclosure. The boundary of the house feels protective, turning this small patch of ground into a private universe. One can feel the stillness settling into the textures of the stone and timber, a gentle weight that encourages the mind to slow down. There is no urgency here, only the steady pulse of a morning that is content to take its time. Every inch of the view is filled with a soft, diffused glow that blurs the edges of the day, making the transition from sleep to waking feel like a seamless flow of silver and green. The whispers of the garden are found in the way the light catches a stray thread of spider silk, or the way the shadows pool in the deep recesses of the gate. It is a sanctuary of the mundane, elevated by the simple act of being still. The path leads nowhere in particular, yet it feels like the most important journey in the world. Enclosed by the high walls of the residence and the dense green of the perimeter, the space feels narrow and intentional. The stones underfoot are cool and steady, smoothed by years of rain and the quiet passage of time. Overhead, the sky is a flat, pale gray that casts no harsh shadows, allowing the natural colors of the foliage to breathe with a deep, saturated intensity. There is a profound sense of enclosure here, a feeling of being tucked away in a secret fold of the domestic landscape. The air is slightly thinner in this corridor, moved only by the faint breath of a breeze that lost its way between the buildings. It is a place for wandering without a destination, for letting the eyes rest on the subtle variations of light and dark that define the boundary. The stillness is almost tactile, a velvet layer that wraps around the house and keeps the noise of the outside world at bay. Every step taken in thought feels amplified by the silence, yet the silence is never empty. It is filled with the presence of the home, the quiet sighing of the structure as it settles into the earth. The world beyond the hedge feels like a distant memory, replaced by the immediate reality of stone and leaf. This is the beauty of a small space. It forces a closeness with the environment that larger landscapes can never provide. The quiet is wide because it occupies the entirety of the senses, leaving no room for the clutter of the day. The light of the late afternoon begins to turn to gold, casting a warm and heavy glow over the corner of the patio. It is the time of day when the garden seems to exhale, releasing the heat of the sun and preparing for the coming cool of evening. The chair sits empty, not as a sign of absence, but as an invitation to the stillness itself. The shadows are beginning to lengthen, stretching thin fingers across the paving stones and climbing the brickwork of the house. There is a sense of deep peace in this arrangement, a domestic harmony that requires no witness. The greenery in the pots seems to glow from within, the edges of the leaves illuminated by the low sun until they look like stained glass. This small alcove is a testament to the power of the intimate. It is a place where the scale of the world is reduced to what can be touched and seen from a single vantage point. The quiet here is thick and sweet, like honey pouring slowly into a jar. It settles over the scene, smoothing out the rough edges of the architecture and bathing everything in a soft, nostalgic light. One can almost hear the soft whispers of the garden as the plants lean toward the fading warmth. It is a moment of transition, a pause between the activity of the day and the rest of the night. The home stands as a silent sentinel in the background, its presence felt in the way the light reflects off the window panes. In this small space, the quiet feels vast, a wide ocean of calm that ripples gently in the golden air. A thin veil of mist hangs over the front yard, blurring the lines between the garden and the street. The world is muffled, the sounds of the neighborhood swallowed by the damp, gray air. From the vantage point of the porch, the garden looks like a dream fading into view. The low stone wall serves as a gentle boundary, marking the transition from the public to the private, from the common to the personal. The plants are heavy with dew, their forms softened by the moisture-laden atmosphere. It is a time of profound isolation, a few moments where the home feels like an island in a sea of clouds. The silence is heavy and damp, pressing against the skin with a cool, refreshing touch. There is no movement save for the occasional drop of water falling from a leaf to the soil below. The house is a solid, grounding presence, its familiar shapes providing a sense of security in the shifting fog. This is the garden at its most internal, a space that seems to be dreaming of itself. The colors are muted, reduced to a palette of silvery greens and charcoal grays. The quiet is not just a lack of noise, it is a physical presence, a layer of insulation that protects the sanctity of the early hour. As the mist slowly begins to lift, the details of the garden emerge one by one, like a photograph developing in a darkroom. The whispers are found in the soft drip of the dew and the rustle of a hidden leaf. It is a small world, perfectly contained and infinitely deep. As the sun disappears below the horizon, the garden enters the blue hour, a time of deep shadows and luminous reflections. The surface of the small pond becomes a dark mirror, capturing the sky and the silhouette of the home above. In the glass of the French door, the garden is doubled, a ghost version of itself that seems to exist in a different dimension. The light is cool and ethereal, stripping away the textures of the day and replacing them with a smooth, liquid darkness. The quiet here is profound, a silence that feels as though it has been pulled from the depths of the water. There is a sense of mystery in the way the reflection shifts and shimmers, a visual whisper that speaks of the hidden life of the domestic space. The home is silent, its interior lights not yet turned on, leaving the focus entirely on the dialogue between the water and the glass. The air is still, the wind having died down with the sun, leaving the garden in a state of perfect equilibrium. This small corner of the property feels like a portal, a place where the boundaries between the inside and the outside are momentarily dissolved. The stillness is meditative, encouraging a gaze that looks beyond the surface into the quiet heart of the space. It is a scene of immense gravity and lightness all at once. The wide quiet of the garden is condensed into this single point of reflection, a small space that holds the entire sky within its grasp. The whispers are the ripples that never quite form, the movement that is felt rather than seen. The rain falls with a rhythmic, steady pulse, turning the side garden into a symphony of soft sounds. Each drop hits the broad leaves above with a hollow thud, before sliding off to join the dark pools forming on the wooden bench. The wood has turned a deep, rich brown, its grain highlighted by the moisture. There is a sense of utter seclusion in this corner, a feeling of being protected by the very elements that are drenching the rest of the world. The home is just a few feet away, its walls providing a windbreak that keeps this spot relatively calm. The air is thick with the scent of wet earth and ozone, the primal smells of a garden in the rain. The quiet here is filled with the sound of the water, a white noise that drowns out the distant hum of life. It is a domestic wildness, a small patch of nature that has been allowed to follow its own course for a few hours. The bench sits as a silent observer, a stationary point in a landscape of constant, gentle motion. The light is flat and even, filtered through the gray clouds and the canopy of leaves, creating a mood of somber reflection. This is a place to sit in the mind, to let the rain wash away the clutter of thought. The enclosure of the side yard makes the space feel like a room without a ceiling, a private chamber where the only visitor is the weather. The whispers are the trickles of water finding their way through the cracks in the wood, a soft language of descent and rest. At the center of the courtyard, the bird bath stands as a silent hub for the small world surrounding it. The water within is perfectly still, acting as a lens that focuses the dappled sunlight onto the stone bottom. The midday sun is high, but the light is broken by the leaves of an overhanging tree, creating a shifting mosaic of brightness and shadow. The courtyard is paved with warm-toned stones, radiating a gentle heat that speaks of the sun's strength. There is a feeling of centeredness here, an architectural focus that draws the eye and the spirit toward the middle. The silence is bright and expansive, filled with the potential for movement that never comes. The house surrounds the courtyard on three sides, its windows like quiet eyes watching over the space. This is an intimate arena of light, a place where the domestic and the natural meet in a formal, yet soft, arrangement. The air is warm and carries the scent of sun-baked stone and dried herbs. It is a moment of perfect clarity, where every detail of the masonry and the water is rendered with sharp precision. The wide quiet of the garden is anchored by this stone vessel, a small point of stillness that balances the energy of the entire home. The whispers are the patterns of light moving across the water, a silent dance that marks the passage of the hour. It is a space of rest and equilibrium, where the home breathes in the warmth of the day. The alleyway is a narrow sliver of space, a secret passage that belongs only to the residents of the two houses. The brick walls are aged and textured, covered in a tapestry of climbing vines that soften the hard lines of the architecture. The morning light enters from one end, a soft glow that struggles to reach the depths of the corridor. There is a sense of deep history in these walls, a feeling of layers of time built up in the mortar and the leaves. The space is tight, intimate, and intensely domestic. It is a place for quiet transitions, for moving from one part of the home's life to another. The silence here is resonant, echoing slightly against the bricks, but it is a soft echo, muffled by the greenery. The air is cool and still, trapped between the buildings and protected from the wind. This is a garden of the vertical, where the plants reach for the light and the architecture provides the support. The stillness is concentrated in this narrow gap, a dense pocket of calm that feels almost heavy. Every leaf is a small contributor to the overall hush, a tiny dampener of sound. The whispers are the rustle of the vines against the brick, a dry, papery sound that speaks of growth and endurance. In this small space, the quiet is profound because it is so clearly defined by its boundaries. It is a wide quiet that stretches upward toward the narrow strip of sky above, a vertical sanctuary in the heart of the home. The evening has settled into a deep, velvety blue, and the iron lantern hangs as a silent silhouette against the fading sky. It is a small object, yet it carries the weight of the garden's atmosphere. The light is at that delicate point where the details of the trees are beginning to merge into a single dark mass, but the air still holds a luminous quality. The quiet is absolute, a stillness that seems to emanate from the lantern itself. There is a sense of waiting in the air, a pause before the night truly takes hold. The home is a warm glow in the distance, its windows offering a glimpse of a different kind of light. This garden space is an extension of that warmth, a room under the stars that is just as much a part of the house as the kitchen or the parlor. The silence is melodic, filled with the unheard notes of the cooling earth and the settling leaves. The lantern, though unlit, represents the intention of the spacious place for presence and for watching the day depart. The air is crisp and carries the faint smell of wood smoke from a nearby chimney. This is the garden at its most poetic, a place where the domestic scale feels grand because of the depth of its peace. The whispers are the shadows growing longer and the light growing shorter, a silent dialogue between the day and the night. It is a wide quiet, encompassing the entire backyard in a single, breathy moment of rest. The kitchen garden is a place of order and soft utility, its raised beds holding a variety of green forms that reach toward the afternoon sun. The gravel path crunches silently in the mind, a texture that defines the space between the growing things. The light is warm and directional, casting long, soft shadows across the wood and the stones. There is a profound sense of domesticity here, a feeling of care and attention that permeates every corner. The garden is small, tucked away near the back door of the home, making it a constant companion to the life inside. The silence is productive, a quiet energy that speaks of growth and the slow turning of the seasons. The air is warm and carries the scent of herbs and sun-warmed earth. It is a place for slow observation, for noticing the way a leaf curls or how the light catches the edge of a wooden plank. The enclosure of the garden feels like a hug, a gentle boundary that keeps the world at bay and focuses the attention on the immediate. This is a space where the wide quiet of the landscape is brought down to a human scale, made manageable and intimate. The whispers are found in the movement of the light across the gravel, the way the shadows shift and change with the passing hour. It is a sanctuary of the everyday, a place where the simple act of existing is enough. The home is the anchor, its solid presence providing the backdrop for this small, thriving world. The stone steps are a ladder of stillness, each one a platform for the quiet to rest upon. Moss has found its way into the crevices, a soft green carpet that cushions the hard edges of the masonry. The daylight is diffused and gentle, casting no harsh shadows and allowing the textures of the stone to be seen in all their complexity. There is a sense of age and permanence in these steps, a feeling that they have been here as long as the house itself. The garden terrace they lead to is hidden from view, creating a sense of anticipation and mystery. The quiet here is grounded, a silence that comes from the earth and the weight of the stone. The air is cool and damp near the ground, carrying the smell of ancient dust and fresh growth. This small architectural detail is a microcosm of the garden's overall mood, sturdy, peaceful, and deeply integrated with the home. The scale is intimate, a few steps that represent a transition from one level of peace to another. The stillness is so thick it feels as though it could be touched, a physical layer that covers the steps like the moss. The whispers are the silent growth of the green velvet in the cracks, the slow reclamation of the man-made by the natural. In this small space, the quiet is wide because it is so deep, reaching down into the foundations of the house and upward into the still air. From inside the home, the courtyard looks like a framed painting of light and shadow. The glass of the window creates a barrier that amplifies the silence, turning the garden into a visual experience that is entirely separate from the sounds of the interior. The midday sun is bright, washing over the paving stones and the white walls of the enclosure. There is a sense of heat and stillness in the courtyard, a quiet intensity that makes the air seem to shimmer. The architecture of the home creates a perfect square of sky, a blue ceiling that completes the sense of being in a private world. The silence is absolute, a visual hush that is only broken by the movement of a shadow as the sun tracks across the sky. The plants in the courtyard are still, their leaves basking in the warmth and light. This perspective reinforces the garden's role as a room of the house, an outdoor gallery that changes with the hour and the season. The quiet is wide because it is uncontained, filling the entire frame of the window and spilling into the room beyond. The whispers are the reflections on the glass, the way the interior and the exterior merge in a ghost-like dance of light. It is a moment of pure observation, a chance to see the garden as a separate entity that nonetheless belongs entirely to the domestic sphere. The home is the frame, and the garden is the masterpiece of stillness within it. The gate stands slightly ajar, a silent invitation to enter the quiet world beyond. It is a simple wooden structure, weathered by the seasons and integrated into the hedge that surrounds the property. The morning light is soft and filtered through a light fog, creating a sense of mystery and depth in the narrow side garden. There is a feeling of being on the threshold of something private and sacred. The silence is heavy with the mist, a damp hush that clings to the wood and the leaves. The home is visible in the background, its dark windows reflecting the gray sky. This small entrance is a transition point, a place where the outside world is left behind and the domestic peace begins. The air is cool and smells of wet wood and damp grass. The stillness is expectant, as if the garden is waiting for something that will never arrive. Every detail is softened by the fog, from the texture of the gate to the individual leaves on the hedge. The wide quiet of the space is condensed into this single opening, a narrow passage that leads into the heart of the home's exterior life. The whispers are the creak of the gate in the mind, the imagined sound of a movement that has already happened. It is a scene of profound stillness, a moment captured in the amber of a quiet morning. The night has transformed the garden into a landscape of silver and shadow. The moonlight is bright and cold, casting sharp, black shadows across the stone path and the walls of the house. The tall plants stand like silent sentinels, their forms simplified by the darkness into elegant silhouettes. There is a sense of immense scale in the small space, a feeling that the garden has expanded to include the entire night sky. The silence is deep and resonant, a quiet that feels as though it has been filtered through the stars. The home is a dark mass, its presence felt in the way it blocks the moonlight and creates deep pools of shadow. This is the garden at its most elemental, a space of light and dark, presence and absence. The air is cold and still, moving only with the slow rotation of the earth. The stillness is contemplative, encouraging a gaze that looks upward as much as around. The wide quiet of the garden is a reflection of the wide quiet of the universe, brought down to the size of a backyard. The whispers are the beams of light hitting the stones, a silent communication from a distant source. It is a place of profound peace, where the domestic and the cosmic meet in a small, enclosed patch of ground. The night is not a void, but a presence, a layer of velvet that wraps the home in a protective embrace. The first light of dawn is pale and weak, barely touching the surface of the small garden table. The ceramic mug and the closed book sit in a state of perfect stillness, objects that have been left behind by the day before or are waiting for the day to come. There is a sense of profound domesticity in this arrangement, a feeling of a life lived in quiet increments. The garden is still waking up, the air cool and the light slowly gaining strength. The silence is fresh and clean, a new beginning that has not yet been marked by sound. The home is a quiet presence in the background, its walls beginning to catch the first hints of color from the rising sun. This small scene is a summary of the garden's entire purpose: a place for presence, for reading, for thinking, and for being. The scale is intensely personal, a single point of focus in the wide quiet of the morning. The stillness is a gift, a moment of clarity before the world begins to stir. The whispers are the pages of the book that are not being turned, the steam that is no longer rising from the mug. It is a scene of completion and beginning, a quiet pause that holds all the potential of the day within its grasp. The wide quiet of the garden is anchored here, in this small, everyday moment of peace.